Stay tuned for the Sean Casey Show, a podcast for Patriots. Back to the Sean Casey Show, a podcast for Patriots. Yes, I am Sean Casey, and this is where we, the people, meet the resistance, the pushback, as we continue to stand up for America, the exceptional nation that it is, a shining city on the hill, that beacon of freedom, and we stop this transformation to Marxism being led by Chairman Joe and cackling Kamala Harris. Boy, what a ticket that is, huh? Joining us in the fight each and every episode, our executive producer is Joe Hosny Armacost.
Well, happy Friday to all the listener viewers and Double X and Sean.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, it is. It's Friday, March 3rd, heading into the weekend, and winter is kind of flying by, at least in the Mid-Atlantic. It's been a favorable winter so far, although it was sleeting a little bit today.
Yeah, it was.
And our associate producer and researcher, Michelle Drusella, a.k.a. Double X. Hello, Michelle.
Hi, guys. Are we ready for the weekend?
We are ready for the weekend.
You never know what's going to happen over the weekend.
No, you really don't. Not with the Biden regime. There's a lot going on right now. Of course, we got a lot of ground to cover here on the program. I just a couple of program notes. One is that there is now, in addition to the audio podcast, which you can download, subscribe, rate, and review at all your major, podcast platform delivery systems. Make sure that you do subscribe. And we do have now the new video version of the podcast as well, the vodcast, if you call it. And you can find that at both Rumble and at YouTube.
I haven't seen that yet.
You haven't seen it at YouTube?
No.
Oh, I have.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's there. Yeah, check it out on YouTube and or Rumble. It's there. And again, we hope that it stays there, but you never know with social media these days.
Right.
Yeah.
So check it out. You get to see all the three of us, and we had our first episode with Christina Bob. Hopefully, we'll get some different. We got some other guests coming up in the next week. So love hearing from you as well. You can tell us what you think of it. The brand new vodcast at the Sean Casey Show at gmail.com, and subscribe to that as well.
Yeah, subscribe. I was going to jump right on that there, Sean.
Yeah.
And if you're a viewer, I know that I haven't seen it at YouTube, but we got growing pains here, folks, and we're growing through them. So if you see, if it looks a little funky on the first one or the second one, we're slowly but surely improving with each show. So
again, we're and here's where it is. We're basically audio people, and now we're jumping into the video world. So it is something that we're learning as we go. But you could do us a big favor if you're a subscriber to the audio. If you prefer the audio, that's fine. Or if you want to check out the video, but do us a favor, subscribe anyway to the video and Rumble channels on YouTube or Rumble channels. That helps us grow it
even
as
if you hate
well.
us. Yeah.
Even if you hate us. Yeah. It's even better because the people that hate us will want to denounce us in mass.
Right.
It's at mass formation psychosis that Dr. Malone talked about during the COVID crazy years.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we got a lot going on today. Hey, just off the top, a couple of things here. I don't know if you followed the trial, but Alex Murdaugh, who was accused of killing his wife and son in South Carolina, was found guilty last night. I think the jury was out less than 3 hours. This was a guy that went and used two guns, tried to argue there was other people, and a smart guy, smart attorney. You tried to use his addiction as an excuse. Today, he was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of his wife and son. Horrific story.
He still didn't cop to it.
Nope, still didn't cop to it, still claiming his innocence. Look, he's so guilty, even OJ thinks he's guilty. Okay? But it's never a good idea to lie on the stand. They caught him in a lie on the stand because of there was, I think, a Snapchat or a third call or cell phone at the scene that night. He lied about that, told the investigators he wasn't there, and then the Snapchat proves he was there, and then he started going, well, it was my addiction. I was lying because I didn't want people to think that I was there, and blah, blah, blah. Well, once you lie on the stand, you get caught, and then you admit to lying, your credibility is shot with the jurors. And I think that's a big reason why.
Yeah.
And of course, there was other evidence. They never found the guns. And we still don't know how he was able to clean up so fast, because he would have had blood spatter all over him with a shotgun and another long gun and shooting his family.
Well,
Just
now
a horrific story.
Now they're opening up other cases that he was kind of involved with, like the death of his the maid, and then there was another guy he owed money to that they said got hit. It was a drive-by hit job, and he was found dead on the road, but they said there was no evidence the guy was actually hit, and so they're opening up other cases and exhuming bodies and stuff like that. So
they should, because looking at this guy, he reminds me of a sociopath.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He'll lie and have no compunction. And I always felt the crying on the stand when he broke down that was completely manufactured. I don't think it was genuine. I don't think the jurors bought that as well. So
using the pet names was also something that, from what I understand, people didn't hear him use those names, except then. It was touching.
Right. Yeah, it was. It was an act. Let's face it. Yeah. John Fetterman, he still has not been seen. He's supposedly in Walter Reed, but we understand he's co-sponsoring legislation from his hospital room at Walter Reed Military Hospital.
That really surprises me, because you're suffering depression. You're not supposed to be. You're supposed to be away from all the stress of the world.
But he has an obligation to represent the voters.
True.
Unfortunately, the idiotic ones, not all, in Pennsylvania that put this guy in that was nearly killed by a stroke. Here they had Dr. Oz, whether you liked him or not, clearly in control of all his faculties. They put a brain-addled individual who is not fully recovered back into the Senate. It's a meat grinder, folks. And I don't know if he'll ever be the same again. And then Di-Fi, she's been hospitalized with a case of the shingles. She's 90 and still hanging on. They love power. They're so drunk on power that they can't even go quietly in the night and enjoy their golden years. They've got to hang on to the very end.
Term limits, people.
Yeah. We definitely need to go there, no doubt about that. But today I wanted to talk a little bit. Let's talk with our founding fathers here, because I keep getting asked this question regarding all these hearings, the oversight hearings. We had the Garland Attorney General was being grilled by the Senate this week. We'll get into some of those exchanges here in just a second. But people go, where does it say in the Constitution that they can have these oversight hearings? So I want to point you to Article 1, Section 1 of our Constitution. It says, all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in Congress of the United States, which shall consist of the Senate and the House of Representatives. So the key word there is all legislative powers. The Constitution says nothing about congressional investigations and oversight, but the authority to conduct investigations is implied in this all legislative powers phrase. The Supreme Court did indeed determine that the framers intended for Congress to seek out information when crafting or reviewing legislation. George Mason, who has a university named after him in Virginia, said at the Federal Convention the members of Congress are not only legislators, but they possess inquisitorial powers, much like the Grand Inquisitors of the House of Commons over in Great Britain. So this was something that they all agreed that Congress had to meet frequently to review the conduct of public officers, and they're doing that right now. Not only are they grilling the cabinet heads, there's an ethics investigation into George Santos and one into AOC. You don't hear much about that one, do you? That she may have received favors or some fashion favors when she attended that Met Gala. Remember, she was wearing that that dress and the red lettering and so on and so forth.
Tax the rich.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that may have been given to her, and that may have violated congressional ethics requirements. So just the latest on that. So that's where we get into this, what I call kabuki theater. And the reason why I call it is the reason why they hold these hearings. And you saw what the Democrats did with J6, and we'll tackle that on tomorrow's KC commentary, because there's a lot of J6 news, and we want to spend a whole commentary on that tomorrow. But what the Democrats did, they stacked that committee. There are apparently still boxes and boxes of records that have not been turned over to the defense, which is a violation of exculpatory laws. So they're in it, deep, and we'll see if there's any repercussions here. But the point being is that you look at all these committee hearings and whatever becomes of them. Remember the Benghazi hearings? Remember the Hillary Clinton? Remember some of these other hearings? It's rare. Now, they were able to get indictments and convictions on Steve Bannon. It'll be interesting to see what happens on his appeal. And Navarro still is up for trial. But Eric Holder has been held in contempt. Nothing ever happened to him. So most of these are just strictly show trials or dog and pony shows. And the reason why they do them is because they're able to raise funds from their bases. You know, the far left progressive base loves it. They just keep pouring money and contributions into the Democrats' coffers. And the same goes for the conservatives and some of the Republicans as well. I don't think this week's hearing with Merrick Garland is any different. I'll tell you why in just a second, but let's get to some of the exchanges. First up, and again, this was all about the weaponization of the Justice Department by Joe Biden, by Attorney General Merrick Garland. Josh Hawley is up first, the senator, a former prosecutor, goes after him over pro-life demonstrators and the double standard that the Justice Department shows in going after pro-life people versus...
This is a case where a Catholic pro-life demonstrator, father, was accused of disorderly conduct in front of an abortion center. The local prosecutor, the Philadelphia district attorney, who is a Democrat, a liberal, very progressive, declined to prosecute. There was a private suit that got dismissed. And then after all of that, your Justice Department sent between 20 and 30 armed agents in the early morning hours to the Houck's private residence to arrest this guy after he had offered to turn himself in voluntarily. Here's the photo. Once again, you can see the long guns. You can see the ballistic shields. You can see that they're wearing bulletproof vests. Why did the Justice Department do this? Why did you send 20 to 30 SWAT-style agents and a SWAT-style team to this guy's house when everybody else had declined to prosecute and he'd offered to turn himself in?
Determinations of how to make arrests under arrest warrants are made based by the tactical operators in the district. They are not.
But you surely looked into it by this point, right? You know the answer, surely. All I know is what the FBI has said, which is that they made decisions on the ground as to what was safest and easiest. So you do not agree with your description of what happened on the scene.
You know, he doesn't agree with the description of what happened on the scene. And what he's arguing is Hawley and some of the other Republicans are saying 20 to 30 armed FBI agents and other law enforcement officials showed up at Mark Houck. That's the name of the sidewalk counselor at his home in Pennsylvania at 6:30 in the morning and started banging on the door. They did not announce they were police. They did not present a warrant initially until Mr. Houck. And I spoke to him this week. In fact, he's speaking in Maryland today as we go to a recording session. He's in Ellicott City, Maryland today, speaking to a group of Marylanders. But they didn't announce or didn't show any warrant until he went to the door. Now, normally in that part of Pennsylvania, I mean, it's hunting area, and you go, somebody knocks or bangs on your door at 6:30 in the morning. A lot of guys would grab their shotgun or their firearm. It's a good thing he didn't. Mm-hmm. A good thing he didn't, because he may be dead. Now, remember, there are 7, he's making breakfast for his 7 children and his wife. And, of course, they were traumatized by this. But what Garland is arguing that the description doesn't match because of the 20 to 30. He's quibbling over the number.
He's a weasel.
He's an absolute weasel. But here's what Mark Houck told me. He told me that they counted 15. His kids did. Mm-hmm. While he was busy with the agents, his kids counted 15 law enforcement vehicles. Now, did every one of them have 2? No, it's impossible. But they had 1 to 2. So at the very least, it was 15 agents. The max would have been 30. So again, the estimate was 20 to 30. You're not that far off from 15 to 30. And now it's
so unnecessary. That was unnecessary to send that many people, and it's a waste of money and time.
It was a complete waste of money. But again, you have to look at the left. They want to intimidate. They want to make sure they put a chilling effect on all pro-life protesters. He used to go down numerous occasions Planned Parenthood outside in Philadelphia. He'd bring his son. I think the latest time he had his son with him and his 12-year-old son. And this radical pro-abortion guy starts getting up in the face, yelling names, upset. He was goading. He was baiting. And it was successful because Mark Houck, as a father, stepped in to try to protect his son from the slings and arrows. And he shoved him. He pushed him, which can be considered a misdemeanor assault. But the local Philadelphia DA, Larry Krasner, declined to press charges. It was only after somebody, gave it to the feds that they decided, okay, we're going to make an example of this guy. Mm-hmm. He's been a thorn in our side. So then, this is jackbooted thug type behavior, and shame on the FBI agents that participated in this, going to roust a Christian family. And he, by the way, told his lawyers, look, if they're going to indict me, I will surrender. I will volunteer. There's no need to come to my home and roust my kid. But they did it anyway because they can. And they wanted to send a message. All right, so that's what the weasel, as Joe calls him, Merrick Garland, was trying to quibble over numbers. Next up, Ted Cruz. He almost blows a gasket on Garland. Here's Senator Cruz going after why they didn't do a better job of protecting Supreme Court justices.
I sent 70 United States Marshals.
Let me try again. Has the Department of Justice brought even a single case under this statute? It's a yes, no question. It's not a give a speech on the other things you did.
The job of the United States Marshals is to defend the lives.
So the answer is no.
Is to defend the lives of the justices, and that's their number one priority. They have.
Why are you unwilling to say no? The answer is no. You know it's no. I know it's no. Everyone in this hearing room knows it's no. You're not willing to answer a question. Have you brought a case under this statute? Yes or no?
As far as I know, we haven't. And what we have done is defended the lives of the justices with 70 U.S. Marshals.
How do you decide which criminal statutes the DOJ enforces and which one it doesn't?
The United States Marshals know that they have full authority.
I recognize you want to give a separate speech.
No, I don't want to.
How do you decide which statutes you enforce and which ones you don't?
The Marshals on scene make that determination in light of the priority of defense.
The Marshals do not make a determination over whether to prosecute. You, the Attorney General, make a determination, and you spent 20 years as a judge, and you're perfectly content with justices being afraid for their children's lives, and you did nothing to prosecute it. Let's shift to another area.
Can I answer the question?
No, you cannot. You have refused to answer the question.
I am answering your question. The Attorney General does not decide whether to arrest.
How did you choose not to enforce this statute?
The Marshals on scene.
Marshals don't make that decision.
They do make the decision of whether to make an arrest.
Prosecute someone? No, they don't.
Marshals
do not have prosecution.
If they make an arrest, then it goes to the Marshals. Let's change topics
because our time is limited.
Yeah, and Ted Cruz is absolutely right. And look, the Marshals do make the decision, but the law is the law, and the law is supposed to be evenly applied. And if there's somebody that they believe is posing a threat or violating the law, they are arrested. Then it's up to the prosecutors to decide whether or not they have enough to bring charges and get a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. And we're finding that the numbers are staggering in that pro-life protesters and judges and Christians and so on and so forth are being targeted, are being persecuted, parents, etc. We'll get to the reason why here in just a second. But Senator Mike Lee also had his round with Merrick Garland talking about the numbers themselves of prosecutions and arrests of the pro-life crowd. Here's Senator Lee with the Attorney General.
DOJ has announced charges against 34 individuals for blocking access to or vandalizing abortion clinics. And there have been over 81 reported attacks on pregnancy centers, 130 attacks on Catholic churches since the leak of the Dobbs decision, and only 2 individuals have been charged. So how do you explain this disparity by reference to anything other than politicization of what's happening there?
The FACE Act applies equally to efforts to damage, blockade clinics, whether whether they are a pregnancy resource center or whether they are an abortion center. It applies equally in both cases, and we apply the law equally. I will say you are quite right. There are many more prosecutions with respect to the blocking of the abortion centers, but that is generally because those actions are taken with photography at the time, during the daylight, and seeing the person who did it is quite easy. Those who are attacking the pregnancy resources centers, which is a horrid thing to do, are doing this at night, in the dark.
Night.
Yeah.
So they
it's
can't.
like, well, we really can't enforce the law at night because it's in the dark and, our FBI agents can't see.
Yeah.
What?
We got to get them some night vision, dude.
Right.
Yeah. Well, how about setting up a camera?
Yeah.
Or setting, look, they entrapped people on J6.
Cameras
Why can't
work
they
at
do
night.
it at the pregnancy center?
Yeah.
Right. They did it with the cell phones. You can geotrack.
Well, remember the 2,000 mules? They
Right.
get people tracked by phones at night. This guy, look, he's a political hack. He's appointed by Chairman Joe. That's what I'm about to tell you is going to prove what I've been talking about for a long time. If the Republicans were serious to getting to the bottom of this, if they really wanted to probe deeper and deeper and peel back the layers of this onion, then Merrick Garland wouldn't even be there. It's the people that are making decisions for Merrick Garland. And let me give you a name. Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco. She's the one that should come before Senate. She's the one. Remember the ladies at Obama? They all served in Obama's cabinet. Lisa Monaco, Susan Rice, Samantha Power, Catherine Rumler, Mary Ford, I think is another one. There are about half a dozen of these radical progressive wingnuts, and Lisa Monaco is one of them. In fact, she's the one that reconstituted the Council on investigating domestic terrorism. And guess what? After she was appointed to that position, all of a sudden, parents became targets of the FBI. Christians became targets. Traditional Catholics, who, by the way, like the Mass heard in Latin, that came out of the Richmond field office. Mm-hmm. They were targeted. And it was all done at the behest and the urging of Lisa Monaco. Why the hell isn't Lisa Monaco before these senators? Because that's the person that's making the decisions. Merrick Garland, he's a paper pusher. He's a political guy. He signed off on the Mar-a-Lago raid because Biden told him to. But the real problems in America are the ones you don't see. Susan Rice at the White House, Lisa Monaco at the Justice Department, and on and on and on it goes. So that's why I don't think they're serious until I start seeing the underlings getting called in and get grilled on the carpet. Then we'll know that the Republicans aren't serious about getting to the real truth. So I hate to say that, and I don't want to be the skunk at the party. I've seen this too many times. I've seen too many hearings go nowhere, land a few punches, and everybody goes the next day, ooh, you see what Ted Cruz did to Merrick Garland? Ooh, but nothing ever happens. And so that's why this is kabuki theater. And until they get, and again, it is Congress, but again, the Justice Department controls the courts and the FBI right now. So we'll see. We'll see if anything comes of it. I don't have a lot of hope for some of this stuff. The only thing I do think they can do in the House is slow the Biden agenda down until the cavalry arrives in the form of Mr. 47. Or actually Mr. 45.
Mr. 45,
Who will become Mr. 47. See, I'm already thinking positive in that vein.
Yeah.
Speaking of 46, he was in Baltimore the other night, and he made a comment about of course, we played the testimony of the mother, Rebecca Kissling, who lost two sons that were attempting to purchase Percocet, and it turned out it was deadly fentanyl. They both died. She testified before Congress that you got to do something. You got to do something about what's happening. Our people are being poisoned. And yes, I do know that folks that are addicted to drugs are making a conscious effort or choice to do drugs. And some of them overdose on drugs. And that's horrible. Addiction is a very horrible thing. It's a powerful thing to deal with. But it's just not that. There are first responders and others that are trying to help people that are being exposed to these deadly drugs. They're becoming ill. They're dying in some cases. We have others down our southern border, where fentanyl now is being trafficked as counterfeit over-the-counter drugs. So you go, it's Tylenol on steroids. That whole scandal again. So we got to do something about this. And of course, she went to Congress, an emotional, powerful testimony, talked about that, and pleaded with Congress, the president, with somebody, do something to stop this poison from coming into our communities. Well, in Baltimore the other night at a Democratic caucus conference at the Hyatt Regency in downtown near the Outer Harbor, Biden decides he's going to go after Marjorie Taylor Greene, who had tweeted out that he was responsible. His policies were responsible for the death of Rebecca Kissling's sons. And here's how Biden handled it.
A little bit of more Marjorie Taylor Greene and a few more, you're going to have a lot of Republicans running our way. Isn't she amazing?
Creepy.
Oof. Ours, the reason she was very specific. I shouldn't digress probably, but I've read. She was very specific recently, saying that a poor mother who lost 2 kids to fentanyl, that I killed her sons. Well, the interesting thing is that fentanyl they took came during the last administration.
It's a chuckle.
Yeah.
It's a chuckle at the end that was completely inappropriate. The first part of the laughter, he was making a joke at Marjorie Taylor Greene, which he really should ignore. He's the president of the United States. She's just a second-term congresswoman from Georgia. You're supposed to be bigger than that. You're supposed to be larger than that. But it's a chuckle at the end that really stung and didn't sit well with a lot of people. That's called inappropriate affect. There's nothing funny about the death of any American, let alone somebody that has overdosed, even if they did it intentionally. It's not funny.
Punk. He's nothing but a punk, man.
He is a soulless, morally depraved partisan hack who has done nothing but divide this country. And again, Jimmy Carter, he was a bad president, but he had his issues. I think he was a closet anti-Semite, but he didn't really make nasty, over-the-top comments like that.
He wasn't a smart-ass punk like that.
Right. And so Rebecca Kisling, the mother, she gets wind, and she saw this, obviously. And now, of course, you're pouring salt into the wound, and she is now demanding an apology from Chairman Joe. Here's Rebecca Kisling and that.
As President Biden was speaking about this mother who lost her 2 sons, he starts to laugh and says that, well, it turns out that they died before I ever even became president. Like, really? This is how you speak about the death of my sons? Because a congresswoman misspoke? You mock the loss of my sons. How dare you? What is the matter with you? Almost every Democrat on the committee offered me condolences. They at least had the decency to do that. You can't even do that? You have to mock my pain? And then what about the 22% increase in fentanyl deaths since you became president, since you changed your policy at the borders? That represents tens of thousands of U.S. citizens who died under your watch, an increase in tens of thousands. And that represents even double that number of the parents who are suffering. Are you going to keep laughing about those who did die under your watch? Do we have to bring them in so you can look them in the eyes and laugh? What is wrong with you? This is unacceptable, and our president needs to apologize to me, and he needs to be held accountable. And I wish that he would show some serious concern for the lives of those lost. I think that his behavior today speaks volumes, and it tells you where his heart is. Do something. Don't be a coward. Do something.
She's absolutely right.
I mean, this is a president that looked at his watch when the coffins were being brought out from those
Dover
13.
Air Force Base.
Yes.
This was a guy that botched that Afghanistan withdrawal, didn't really care about the 13 servicemen, and there's a Pentagon Inspector General's report coming out, probably out next week. And remember, you heard it here first, that it is going to blow the door off the side deals that Biden made with the Taliban prior to that withdrawal, including telling U.S. forces to stand down even when they were attacked by the Taliban. It's unconscionable.
Disgusting.
So, again, he claims to be a devout Catholic, and yet he is one of the biggest cheerleaders of killing babies in the womb I think we've ever seen. So this is a man that is soulless. There's no moral compass here. His only religion is money and power and enriching his family. He doesn't care about Americans and Democrats and Republicans and libertarians and whoever. Again, I think most Americans are inherently good. And I think most Americans would disagree with his behavior. And he should apologize, but he won't.
No.
But that was asked at the White House press briefing yesterday. Karine Jean-Pierre, and notice how she's getting less and less time. We're watching Admiral Kirby do press conferences.
She stinks.
Kate Bedingfield now is starting to come
at her
in.
job. Yeah.
Right. Again, she's horrible. That's what happens when you put diversity over competency in any administration. Where it bothers me is really when they start doing it with airline pilots and stuff like that. But in any event, she responds to the question, well, don't you think the president should apologize? I mean, the mother's demanding an apology. Shouldn't he just say, I'm sorry? Here's the response.
When it comes to this president, I believe the American people knows who he is fundamentally because he's been around for some time, and they have watched him go through grief. They have watched him deal with really personal loss. And so this is a president that understands that. He expressed sympathy for her last night, and his heart goes out to any person who has to go through that type of trauma, that type of hurt. I will say his words are being mischaracterized by someone who is regularly discredited.
And so she makes a point here that, well, he's a person that has suffered personal loss. And he did. He lost his first wife and 2 children in a horrific car accident where his wife crossed the double yellow lines and hit an oncoming truck and it killed them. Yet, what did he do? He blamed the truck driver, Curtis Dunn, saying that he had drank his lunch that day. He was not drunk. He was entirely sober. That doesn't matter to somebody who is morally depraved like Joe Biden. So he knows no parent should ever outlive a child. But he lost 2, and then he lost his son, Beau, to brain cancer. So this is a man that's lost 3 children. You would think that he would have some, comfort or solace or empathy for this woman instead of cracking jokes at her expense to get to some other political person like Marjorie Taylor Greene. It shows you just the level that this man will stoop to.
Or it's indicative of what he's dealing with his mental cognitive abilities.
Right. No, that's also another possibility. He can't really process that with his current state of cognitive of impairment. Okay, COVID was in the news a lot this week with the lab leak, and there's a bunch of other news out there with COVID. Medicare has been hiding the COVID data. Now it's coming out. And slowly but surely, maybe we'll do a report on it next week. But the gist of that is that Medicare now, the data is that our seasoned citizens, maybe not a good idea to have injected them with the jab, because the fatality, the death rates after the jab in our seasoned citizen population is far greater than one could imagine. But we'll get to that when we have the actual data that's coming out. But I want to flash back to just about a year and a half, 2 years ago. There was a nurse. Her name is Jennifer Bridges, and she was a nurse at Houston Methodist Hospital in Texas, and she was one of the first nurses to realize there's something drastically wrong here. And she became a whistleblower when she saw things that she thought was, not indicative of how medical professionals should be acting. For instance, she points out in the very early stages of COVID at her hospital, they were treating patients with hydroxychloroquine. And then all of a sudden, they switched it up and went to remdesivir, as if somebody just turned a light switch. And they were having some success. It wasn't, a cure-all, but they were having a lot more success with hydroxychloroquine than were with the remdesivir. Then she pointed out that, doctors wouldn't even go in the room. The vast majority of doctors would not go in a room with a COVID patient. Some would, but they set the nurses up to do that, and then the nurses were the ones that had to be the liaison between the families who couldn't, basically they had to look into a window at a hospital. You couldn't actually go in the room. And it just was a horrific thing. But what makes it even worse is that there were business decisions that were made by hospital administrators, by even some doctors, and by our government that put money and big pharma and profit from the jab over, the human touch in the healthcare field. And here, where Jennifer Bridges talks about she was the main whistleblower, but she was getting receipts and all sorts of emails. She has the receipts of what happened at Houston Methodist Hospital 2 years ago, and she testified before Senator Ron Johnson about what she saw and what she heard. Here's Jennifer Bridges.
So I've seen text messages, I've seen emails where Methodist Hospital threatened their doctors. You cannot sign medical exemptions. You cannot talk about, you cannot report adverse reactions to these vaccines. And then if you do, and if somebody was actually brave enough to do that on writing, there were other people higher up to erase those. Those were not to be allowed on record. I have the proof and I have the people that have shown me these things.
Yeah. And yet, again, where's the media? Where's the state-run media to cover this kind of thing? Where's the old gray lady, the New York Slimes, the Washington Compost, the Boston Globe, the Baltimore Sun? Where are all these? Because when it doesn't fit the narrative, they're not interested. The other big story, of course, is the lab leak. And we know it now that the DOE, the FBI, and we know that Fauci, I tell you, Fauci's sweating bullets because the Senate just this week, the Hawley bill, they voted to declassify all the email exchanges between Fauci, EcoHealth Alliance, and the Wuhan Institute of Virology. So he's going to be sweating bullets. He's probably getting ready to leave the country because it's going to be pretty damn embarrassing for him. But Dr. Marty Makary, he's at Hopkins here in Baltimore. We broadcast behind in the blue state of Maryland behind enemy lines. He talked about what happened at that lab and why this is evidence of a massive cover-up, how the CCP let this bioweapon or let this deadly virus outside of the lab. Here's Dr. Makary, Johns Hopkins University and Hospital.
Thank you, Congresswoman. The reason this is even an issue is that it's embarrassing we funded the lab. If we had not funded the lab, 100% of Americans would say this is obvious, this is a no-brainer. The epicenter of the world is 5 miles from one of the only high-level virology labs in China. The doctors initially were arrested and forced to sign non-disclosure gag documents. The lab reports have been destroyed. They've not been turned over. The sequences reported from the lab to the NIH database were deleted by a request from Chinese scientists that called over early on and said, delete those sequences we put in the database. And two leading virologists, maybe the two top virologists in the United States, Dr. Michael Farzan from Scripps and Dr. Robert Gary from Tulane, told Dr. Fauci on his emergency call in January of 2020 when he was scrambling soon after learning that the NIH was funding the lab, they both said that it was likely from the lab. Both scientists changed their tunes days later in the media, and then both scientists received $9 million subsequent in funding from the NIH. It's a no-brainer that it came from the lab. I mean, at this point, it's impossible to acquire any more information, and if you did, it would only be affirmative.
Yeah, so again, he's putting his reputation, his career on the line, especially at Hopkins, which there are conservative doctors there. I do know several I won't name names because I've told them I will always protect their anonymity. But again, it's a woke hospital. It's a woke university. But he's absolutely right. And for Fauci, who received emails by Dr. Christian Anderson saying that it looked like the virus was potentially engineered, that it was not consistent with the evolutionary theory. As soon as Fauci heard that, he started going into spin mode, cover-up mode with his Dr. Collins and Dr. his eventual successor, Auchincloss, over at NIH. And then he told his boss, who Trump appointed, that, here's another paper that's saying that it's still pretty indicative it's evolution. So he manipulated that information, and he ignored it.
Yeah.
And he should have told the president, the White House Corona Task Force, and others. But again, this is a guy that basically soiled himself over the AIDS crisis back in the 80s. He also was problematic during that.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see. I don't know if we'll ever get we're not going to get the truth during the Biden regime, but maybe in the second Trump administration, we'll get to the bottom of it. The other big story this week was I don't know if you read the cartoon Dilbert. I'm not a big fan of Dilbert.
I used
Scott
to
Adams.
time ago. Yeah.
Scott Adams is the creator and the cartoonist for Dilbert. And Scott's he can be a little rough around the edges. He really can. And he hosts this podcast, Coffee with Scott Adams, I think it's every day, in which he says some outrageous things. And you know what? It's America. You can say outrageous things.
Yeah.
But what he got canceled. He got canceled. He's being called a racist because what he did is he reacted to a poll that Scott Rasmussen did on is it okay to be white? Okay. 72% of U.S. adults said it's okay to be white. I think it's concerning that 28% said no.
Right. What
okay.
the heck?
That to me is the talking point here.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a default position.
Wow.
But what he was reacting to is that 53% of blacks said it was okay to be white. That means 47% said it wasn't. And that's almost half. That's almost half the black people surveyed saying it's not okay to be white. What does that mean? Does that mean that they hate white people? They don't like white people?
Right.
Or they have they have a grudge against white people? I mean, we don't get any further explanation, just it's not okay to be white. So Scott Adams reacted to that on his podcast. And, again, this is, I don't agree with everything he says here, but I can understand why he said it.
So if nearly half of all blacks are not okay with white people, according to this poll, not according to me, according to this poll, that's a hate group. That's a hate group. And I don't want to have anything to do with them. And I would say, based on the current way things are going, the best advice I would give to white people is to get the hell away from black people. Just get the fuck away. Wherever you have to go, just get away. Because there's no fixing this. This can't be fixed. Right? This can't be fixed. You just have to escape. So that's what I did. I went to a neighborhood where, I have a very low black population. Because unfortunately, there's a high correlation between the density. This is according to Don Lemon, by the way. So here I'm just quoting Don Lemon when he notes that when he lived in a mostly black neighborhood, there were a bunch of problems that he didn't see in white neighborhoods. So even Don Lemon sees a big difference in your own quality of living based on where you live and who's there. So I think it makes no sense whatsoever as a white citizen of America to try to help black citizens anymore. It doesn't make sense. It's no longer a rational impulse. And so I'm gonna back off from being helpful to black America because it doesn't seem like it pays off. Like I've been doing it all my life, and the only outcome is I get called a racist.
Yeah, I've been called a racist. And look, I disagree with the latter part. I think you don't give up on a whole group of people. As a Christian, you're told to forgive. As a Christian, you're told to do whatever you can to help your fellow man. And that doesn't mean you give up on them. But I do understand why he is concerned about 47% of a group saying it's not okay to be white. And that's hateful. It is hateful. And I don't understand why there was this outrage. Why? And of course, he was canceled by the Washington Post, New York Times, LA Times, Baltimore Sun. They all canceled his cartoon as a result of it. I remember Jesse Jackson years ago when he said he got nervous when he was walking down the street and a young black male was coming down the street directly at him.
I remember that too.
You remember that?
Yes,
yeah.
I do.
And of course, Jesse Jackson can say it and get away with it, but nobody else can. So I just think that it was inartful what he said, but I do think you don't walk away from a lot of other people. But I don't think that's something that somebody says that you cancel them, that you threaten their careers and their livelihoods over. And I just think it has to be, you have to do that in context. You have to understand why he was reacting to this and what he said, and then you can analyze it. And some people are saying it was just stupid. He shouldn't have gone there. But again, this is still America. Last time I checked, you still have freedom of speech. Now, with that comes some consequences from time to time.
Yeah.
But I just think that was way overblown. All right. From there, we go to Joey B. Joey B is here, and believe it or not, the big scandal in Washington, did you read the Post this week? The big scandal with everything that's going on with Joe and Jill is that apparently the two of them, when they dine out, they order the same dish. Okay?
I heard that.
The exact same dish, not once in a while, but every time.
My smell of Americans. It's me, Joey B., the president of the White House. It's time I came clean. There are a lot of things being said about me on the Webernet, and those horrible things are true. Now, I'm not talking about Hunter. That boy has his own problems. I'm talking about when Jill Biden and I went out to a restaurant dinner. We ordered the same meal. Can you believe it? Is that un-American? Perhaps. Is it an affront to humanity and the sensibilities of intelligent, rational human beings? Well, it is if you judge by the comments I saw. Jeffrey Dahmer didn't get this much hate. I ate the same macaroni as my wife. Wait till they find out we sleep in the same bed or have the same last name or voted for the same president. Next thing, people will be upset my wife and me wear the same underpants. Get a life.
Now that's a visual that I just can't go there.
Thank you.
Okay. Who's wearing the granny pants? Is it
brought
is it
to
Joe?
you by Depends?
By Sir Dignity. All right, Patriot of the Week, and that's Chip Roy is a Texas congressman. And I got to tell you, I really like this guy. Not only is he willing to call out Joe Biden and the Democrats, but Chip Roy, who's an American patriot, is willing to call out his own party. Here he was on the House floor just the other night.
And what is this side of the aisle doing about it? Not a damned thing. What is this side of the aisle doing about open borders? Nothing. Nothing. What is this side of the aisle doing about an ATF rule about to make felons out of 10 million Americans or more? Nothing. What is this side of the aisle going to do about spending? Lip service. We have a debt ceiling approaching. We're running around like chickens with their heads cut off. We should say something right now. We should pass a bill off this floor saying that we will raise the debt ceiling, but only if you end the disastrous student loans that are going to cost $400 billion and drive up the cost of higher ed. Only if you rescind the $91 billion of unobligated COVID money. Only if you go rescind the $80 billion designed to increase the IRS to go after taxpayers.
There he is, calling out his own party.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about Republicans. That's a true patriot. Putting country over party. Chip Roy is our Patriot of the Week. Time for our liberal lunatics of the week. Our nominees are, first up, John, why the long-faced Kerry? Once again, the climate kook. Let's see what Mr. Kerry, and hear what he has to say about the climate.
The crisis we face of potentially so polluting this planet that we can't restore it, or going beyond tipping points that we can't come back from, that crisis is caused by unabated emissions from fossil fuels that burn so that we can propel our vehicles, heat our homes, light our businesses. It's how we choose to provide energy to our communities around the world. And it is how we don't choose, but simply allow choices that were made years ago to continue because it's easier, or because business as usual is better, makes more money, because people don't want to embrace.
There's a man that flies private jets everywhere he goes. There's a man that has multiple homes, mansions, all across Massachusetts and other parts of the world. There's a man that has not one but two yachts. And here's a man that, he's married to the Heinz ketchup fortune, Teresa Heinz. And, of course, all the stuff that the Heinz ketchup factory spews out into the air, which I'm okay with.
Some things that plastic surgery just does not help.
But he goes, unabated emissions, the stuff that propels our vehicles and heats our homes. What are the alternatives? Really? So that we're supposed to freeze our ass off in our homes and not go anywhere because he'll feel better about himself? All right, that's John Kerry. Okay. The next nominee, Chuck Schumer, regarding Fox News and what he thinks should be done with it.
They have hurt our democracy probably in a way that no other actor, maybe with the exception of Donald Trump, who used them, has done. And so when it's that vital, I think we not only have a right to tell Rupert Murdoch and Fox what to do, but an obligation. Stop the lies, say they were wrong, and report the news.
Yeah, so government will tell news channels what to cover, how to cover it, what they can say, and how they can say it.
Well, they're kind of doing that now.
Well, they do it now with the alphabet networks, and they do it now with MSNBC and CNN, and they've deplatformed One America News and Newsmax. So the only one left really is Fox News. If we get rid of Fox News, we'll get rid of that opposition. Then we can go after talk radio and podcasters.
No, it's never worked well in the past.
No, it hasn't. And our final nominee is, remember Breaking Bad? I don't know if you saw that show on actor Bryan Cranston, who was a card-carrying lefty. Mm-hmm. Here's what he had to say recently.
How did we get to a point where we treated other human beings as slaves? And we're okay with that. When I see the Make America Great Again, my comment is, do you accept that that could possibly be construed as a racist remark? And most people, a lot of people go, how could that be racist? Make America great again? I said, so just ask yourself from an African-American experience, when was it ever great in America for the African-American? When was it great? So if you're making it great again, it's not including them. So it's to teach us in the woke world to open up and accept the possibilities that our privilege has created blind spots for us. And maybe I haven't seen what is really happening yet in all my years.
There's nothing more it's just disconcerting to hear some elitist actor who's paid millions of dollars sit up there and lecture us on the greatness of America. I tell you how great America is, that somebody would pay you the kind of money that you're getting to pretend to be somebody else so that you could be on TV and in a movie. I mean, that to me, that's a pretty good gig, huh?
It is.
And look,
it's crazy.
There are black actors and black actresses who are making a fortune.
Yes,
today.
And singers and
Supreme Court justices, neurosurgeons, presidents,
doctors,
athletes.
Lawyers.
Yeah. Man, America is great for the black experience today, with the exception of cities run by mostly black individuals who happen to be progressives. There, it's not so great. And that's why Trump wants to make America great again. All right, which one? We've got John Kerry with, crapping all over fossil fuels. We've got Chuck Schumer trying to dictate what Fox News should say or cover. And now Bryan Cranston, he hates MAGA because it ignores the slaves.
Well, it's a toss-up between Chuck Schumer and Bryan Cranston, but I got to tell you, I think that Cranston's an idiot. But Schumer's clip is much, much more dangerous at this point for everyone, no matter what
Chuck
color
Schumer gets
you
a
are.
vote. Double X?
I'm going to go with Cranston just because he's trying to put everybody, all the MAGA people in that basket again and say that we're all racist.
Yeah, I'm going to go with John Kerry. And the reason why is they continue to perpetuate this false religion of climatism. Again, COVID, I think, was the precursor for what they want to do with climate control. We played the clip earlier this week about we can track you. There's a individual carbon footprint tracker. They've got plans for us. And I think that is Schumer, you're right. Some of his ideas are inherently dangerous, but I think the climate kooks, climate freaks, and the climate cult, I think, is inherently more dangerous to the United States and the rest of the world. Just my thoughts. All right, let's do our outrage of the day. We'll start with Michelle here this week. Outrage of the week, I should say.
That's okay. Hey, do you remember this girl?
Information laundering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's origins are slightly less atrocious.
Girl, Nina Jankowicz. What was that, Joe? What was that?
Girls are the devil.
Nina, we remember Nina. She was supposed to be some kind of a czar, the disinformation czar, wasn't she?
Yes, and she's blaming Fox for losing her job. So she's gone on Twitter and got a GoFundMe account and asking people to donate to her for her legal fees so she can go after Fox. How ridiculous!
Well, I guess if Dominion's opened the door.
Yeah.
More like the disintonation czar. Yeah.
But they have this disinformation bill that's in the state of Washington that is very scary. So we're keeping an eye on that. We'll talk about that in the future. Joe, what are you outraged by this week?
To Rebecca Kissling, I would like to apologize for our president, Joe Biden. He doesn't seem to have the social skills to not politicize anything, and certainly doesn't seem like he remembers what it feels like to lose children. He was a jerk, and I'm apologizing for him.
All right. Well, I will join you in that apology because he's not a president who's sorry. He is a sorry president.
Thank you, Sean.
Put it that way. All right. My outrage, his name is Knox Sajak. Knox is a sixth grader. Knox went into his sixth grade public school library and took out a book. The librarian actually, this is a soft porn book. He's going to read part of it in just a second. And the librarian was actually encouraging him to take out even more graphic novels in the middle school library. And then he said, I'm going to tell my dad. And then, of course, hit the fan. And the Sajak family, I think the older brother is also in high school. He's gone after genderqueer. So this is a family effort, but this is an 11-year-old getting up in front of a school board meeting, and look at his composure as he reads to these idiot adults directly from a soft porn book in his sixth grade school library. Knox Sajak.
Middle school. I'm a sixth grader. I was in the library, and this book was on a stand. I'd like to read you a page. My back over my hips as I asked if we should take our clothes off. And he's saying yes before I finish my sentence. He's pulling off my t-shirt, laughing when I can't undo his shirt buttons. He's undoing my belt. I'm reaching into his bedside drawer for a condom. We're kissing. Again, we're rolling over. Obviously, you can see where this is going. I don't know if it's because we're feeling especially emotional or just tired. Or these past couple of weeks have been too much. But this reminds me so much of the first time we had sex. We were both terrified.
And there you have it. That's what's in our schools. It continues to be in our schools, even though what happened in Virginia, they continue to reveal soft porn, hard porn, graphic porn from kindergarten all the way up through high school. And it's going to take a valiant effort, parents and grandparents, like the Zajac family did, to stand up to these groomers and these perverts that are running our libraries and running some of our schools. And it's not over yet. It's just beginning. The battle is just beginning. And that's why we need your help. So that is my outrage of the week. Okay, that's going to do it. Wrap it for this week. Don't forget the Casey commentary drops tomorrow. We're all about J6 tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. And as always, you can join us here at the Sean Casey Show at gmail.com. Drop us a line and tell us what you're thinking.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
Once again, our executive producer is Joe Hosny Armacost. Have a great weekend, Joe.
Have a great weekend, everyone. And subscribe, please.
Associate producer, researcher Michelle Drusella, Double X. You have a great weekend as well.
You too. My pleasure. Happy Monday, or see you Monday.
All right. And our associate producers, Hunter and Logan as well. Want you to have a great weekend. Stay free.